Recruiting is a mindset game. Remember the finish line. Remember to avoid selectiveness as your excuse and justification for not wanting to recruit. It's uncomfortable, but you do, as long as we have a light at the end of the tunnel so that when we walk across those coals, we know where we're going, we got a number tied to it, we can roll up our sleeves and get there. Hey guys, it's Brian Icenhower. Welcome to the show today. Excited to have you. I have a topic right now that I think is really on the forefront of my mind. As you know, at Icenhower Coaching, we coach and consult many of the highest producing leaders in North America, especially within the real estate industry. And, oftentimes they own brokerages or real estate teams or some combination of the two. And they're usually the largest of that sort in any particular MLS. Then we coach a lot on the way there, that we're growing, helping grow and get bigger. And growth, at some degree comes from recruiting. And man, I'm telling you, is that a tough deal, right? That's a tough deal. So what I want to talk about today is the recruiting mindset. That's real important. And it's something near and dear to my heart. I think a lot of you know I'm an owner, and I have owned and operated many different real estate brokerages, and I still own some. I don't operate them anymore. I'm more of a passive partner in those brokerages. I own mortgage companies, lots of different types of organizations in the real estate business. And to grow those, we had to recruit. And for purposes of semantics, if you will, or understanding what I'm talking about, there's a difference between recruiting and hiring, in my opinion, in my world. Well, let's talk about Brian Icenhower's language. Recruiting means you're out there generating a body, Let's not, I don't want to get into human trafficking mindsets here. I really want, you're going to go out there and generate a recruit. Hiring is when they come to you. Okay. And that's not, I guess that's recruiting, but again, there's a certain degree of waiting that comes with that. You don't get controlled growth by just waiting for it to come, or, there are things you can do to get them to come, but the quickest way, and we call that pulling, you pull people to you as opposed to pushing, where you're just going out there and generating it. And that's very similar, if we're talking real estate leader, it's very similar to a brand new agent. They always want business to come to them. They don't want to go out and make contacts and do things and do much activity on their part. They want to set things up and hope it comes to them. And that's true in all sales at every level. We're just humans, guys, and you got to understand our own human tendencies. We all want to pull, not push, because pushing is a lot harder work. It's humbling. It can be humiliating. We don't want to be perceived as a shark or or something like that. And I don't want you to. If we're doing things that make you come off that way, we don't want you to do that. You do it the wrong way. But just because you think you are doesn't mean you are. So, we'll talk about that mindset. I'll tell you, it's a very challenging thing, because otherwise you just wait for it to come to you. Now, I will say that you can recruit through organizational size with a push. And then you can get to a place where you get that pull where they're just coming to you and you're really just hiring. And that happens with evidencing success. And that usually happens by size, right? I'll give you an example. With a real estate team, you can recruit a small team. Is a real tough place to be, in my opinion. I think people with small teams really, really struggle at some point. it is fun at times, because everybody's besties and, but things happen and agents just move on. They change, or they go through bad production, or then they want grass is always greener, or someone gets a divorce, or someone leaves, or someone has a bad day and disrupts the culture. I can give you a million different reasons that have nothing to do with your leadership or what you're doing that is going to disrupt that little apple cart. And so the only way to get through the small team dilemma and get to be a little bit bigger is recruit through it. Okay. And, once you get a little bigger, let's say a team of 5 agents turns into a team of 20 agents. Now everybody's going to start coming to you because you got enough people on the team where those relationships are going to generate people. Other people will see and feel like it's safe because enough people are there. Brokerages, same deal. The larger the brokerage, it takes a little bigger numbers with brokerages, but the bigger the brokerage, the more people will go to it because you get the relationships of all the other agents. When people ask, where do I get my license? They typically go to agents. And if you got more of them, you're going to get more new agents. Just the way it works. Bigger brokerage evidence is more success. I know a lot of people hate to think of it that way, but that's just the way it works. I mean, I've been doing this for 34 years now, and I've owned lots of brokerages, coached lots of teams in my whole career, and I'll tell you, it's generally speaking, there's exceptions, but generally speaking, that's how it works. In fact, almost every real estate think tank out there will tell you even profitability, there's an 85 to 90% direct correlation between agent count with teams and brokerages and profitability. So understand that. I mean, it's very important not to be anti-growth, because if you're anti-growth and you're trying to recruit, boy, is it tough. And we naturally are all anti-growth. Why? Because growth is very uncomfortable. Recruiting is extremely hard. It is extremely hard. You're talking to a guy. I mean, there aren't many humans that have recruited more agents than me. I can tell you that right now. If there are, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's keeping track up in the sky. I didn't keep track, but I know it's in the thousands. That's for darn sure. And I know it's multiple thousands. I've recruited a lot of agents in my time, and it's not easy. It's tough. In fact, with me, there was bloody. I recruited way too much. I don't recommend anybody recruit that much. It's just a lot. And we'll talk about that too. What is too much, and what does that look like? I wouldn't do it again. Let's put it that way. I'm happy I did it, I guess, and I lived, but there was blood, like I said. So I'll tell you, recruiting's tough, man. I mean, so it's very easy to go back into comfort and say, I don't want to grow, or I can't grow, or here's the reason. And I can think of lots of reasons I'll tell you about too, because that's very important to not get into the negative recruiting mindsets, because we'll justify why we don't have to do it, because it's so tough. I mean, it's tough. Here's why it's tough. I mean, it's a lot harder than selling real estate. That's for sure. You can go into a listing appointment or a buyer consultation, that, listing agent or that client that wants you to sell their house or buy a house, they typically want to sell or buy a house. So you're just trying to get them to pick you. So you're swimming downstream with them. When you're trying to push and recruit, that person typically is fine where they're at, whatever it is, different industry. You're trying to get them to change their entire life. It's very humbling too, because you could be very successful in what you've done or do, and that person's never sold a house, or they sold one house last year or something. And here they are judging you. It's way worse than when FSBO looks at you, because you're a real estate agent that has no value, because they don't believe real estate agents have any value. They think they can do it themselves. Well, it's way worse than that. This person, you're the enemy. Like, they're set against you because you're going to make them move and change is uncomfortable. So you're the person trying to push them across hot coals to get to more success with you. And boy, did that come with resistance. They didn't sign up for it. Remember, they didn't hire you. You're pushing, you're recruiting. You're trying to unearth that. You're trying to extract that wisdom tooth. Man, I'm full of metaphors today, but you get it. Like, it's not coming willingly. So it's tougher, that wears on you over time, that much rejection, because you're going to have a lot of rejection. It's a very small percentage you get to, even to show up for an appointment, you're going to have, a tough one there. I mean, it's very, we used to celebrate recruiting ratios of 4-to-1, like 4 people that I contacted, 1 joins. That's 75% failure. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in the starting lineup of most batting orders in major leagues with that. That's a lot of failure to get 1 success, and that's a good ratio. That's a really good ratio, 4-to-1 person I go meet with that actually joins. That's good if you're doing big numbers. Again, if you're pulling, if they're coming to you, those numbers will get a lot better, right? And once you get bigger, like we said, they do start to come to you. But you got to fight through it. You got to grow through it. You got to recruit through it. You'll get through most of your problems if you just recruit through it. And it's painful, so we make up other excuses why we don't want to get much bigger. And that's what's tough, man. Recruiting's tough that way. And the biggest excuses are typically that I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them, is being selective. I just want to be selective about who's in my brokerage. I want quality growth. Okay. So, and all of us do that. So I know I'm going to get a bunch of messages from a bunch of people saying, man, you're talking right to me. I know, I'm talking to everybody. This is very, very common. When we get comfortable, but understand, when you get comfortable, that means you're not going to increase your income anymore, and you're not going to get any more time off. Very rarely can we get you out of production as a broker owner or a team leader if we stop before we have enough production. Because what are we going to do? Get our agents to sell more? Have fun with squeezing blood out of that turnip. or just reduce our expenses. We're just going to cut our way to profitability. There is only so much blood you can get out of a tournament. That's another metaphor. There is only so much blood that you can get out of a tournament. So you can't make your agents sell more. I mean, you can maybe help them a little bit. They're going to do what they're going to do, gang. This is real estate, man. It's kind of like being a parent when you lead real estate agents. You try to guide them, and they're not going to listen to you most of the time. And that's how kids are too. You try to guide them, but they're going to make their own dumb choices, and just the way it goes. You're not going to like fire them. They're your kids. And same thing is kind of with agents. You focus your time on getting more agents, and hopefully you have a bigger, because the same percentage is going to work out. So when people are being selective, oh man, that's just hilarious to me. It really is. It's kind of funny because I've seen it for so long, and every brokerage thinks they're selective. The smaller they are, the more selective, right? But the smaller they are, the less profitability, because there is a direct correlation. And the more your own sales have to carry the weight, because if you're really small and you've got like 10 agents in your brokerage, I really doubt their production is making the brokerage profitable alone, covering all the expenses. You're still going to have to sell yourself. So your time is not good. Remember, we always want to be in a business model where growth gets us more time and more income. So the smaller the size, the less the profitability, and the less the free time too. So understand that. That's the reality business nuts and bolts and numbers of it. I know your emotion says selective. Well, that's why you hire business coaches, because we're telling you your emotion is actually a negative mindset for business. It's not growth oriented. You don't ever want to have a business that's not growth oriented. That's why they say when you're not growing, you're dying. It's because it's true. That's why you've all heard that before. I'm telling you, sooner or later, that apple cart's going to get upset. Something's going to change, and it's just going to be you carrying everything. That's just the way it works. Agents move around for lots of reasons that have nothing to do with you. And that growth, albeit selective, understand, typically speaking, there are exceptions, and they're usually temporary exceptions, because ultimately my statement will work out in your organization with enough time. There's an 80-20 principle. It's called Pareto's principle out there, and it gets applied to just about everything. And I'm going to apply it to agent mixes, the mix of agents that are producing in an office. And I can tell you right now, there's about an 80-20 mix, maybe 90-10. Okay, we can say 85-15. I think everybody agrees. 85-15 is good average. So 15% of your agents are going to do 85% of the business. 85% of your agents are only going to do 15% of it. So people will say, I want to be selective. I only want good agents. I don't know what you say good agents. Is it your ethics? Because everybody thinks they have the best ethics. Everybody thinks they got the best broker that's going to, leader that's the most ethical and integrity. It's pretty crazy. I don't know, it's very subjective of how people judge that one. If it's based on production and income, I do want you to have good ethics, and I do want you to have good integrity. I get it. I get it. I don't want bad of those things. I want good of those things. But, one being better than the other, I don't know. Most people, if they have any marginal degree of success as a broker owner, a team leader in your area, generally speaking, they got an adequate amount of those things. Profitability, that's different. And that is based on production levels of those numbers. And those 15% that are producing, whether it's a small brokerage, with just 10, 15 people, generally speaking, just only a couple of them really do most of the business. And the person that owns the brokerage, of course, because they're definitely still selling, usually does the lion's share of it all. So there's no way if they stop production or even scaled back, they're just going to lose less money. And that's a terrible business model to be in, because there's no way to scale that. You're going to work like a banshee. You're going to work at the worst times of the year, which is usually when you need the most time, and that's spring and summer. Spring and summer is that's the busiest time. Why? There's the most sales then. That's usually when you want to take vacations. It's when your kids are out of school. It's when your clients' kids are out of school, so they don't have much time. You take a vacation, then you have less time back at home, to work. So your time gets crammed and compartmentalized. Your client's time gets compartmentalized. So everybody's stressed out. It's the worst thing. So you never get out of that. I'm out of that. I know lots of people, lots of our clients are out of that. You're not. So you're doing your family a disservice because you chose not to recruit because you wanted to be selective. You adopted the selective anti-growth mindset. That way you didn't have to do the work. Yet you tell your kids you go to work every day. Remember, you don't have to be Walmart. You don't have to be the big one. You may get there, who knows? But right now, you just got to get a little bit bigger. A little bit bigger gets you a little bit more free time and a little bit more job security, income security. And if you just keep getting a little bit bigger, some go faster than others. Some have to get their toe in the water first. I think that's the painful way. Now that I've been through it all and I look back on it, oh boy, I should have gone that way. But again, just like your kids, they won't always listen to you. So you don't have to either. You can do it the slow, painful way, trial and error, 10 steps forward, 9 steps back, that kind of thing. That's the way that ends up working. And then they ultimately come to us and we try to move you faster across those hot coals. Because that recruiting mindset, that selectiveness is, I'm just going to be real careful. I'm only going to, and I don't even know how you judge. Like, I'm going to be selective. I'm going to judge which ones are going to be productive. Like I said, you look in those small brokerages, they judged, and there's still 85% are there, right? Then you go to the big brokerages and you'll say, I don't know how that big brokerage makes any money. There's no way. When 85% of them don't even sell anything. Well, just remember, they're 15% bigger than yours because they're bigger. So they have a few more agents that are producing at a high level, and that's why their profitability is higher. Same with small teams versus big teams, small brokerages versus big brokerages. Yes, there are more agents doing absolutely nothing in the big organizations, but do remember they have more doing something too. And it's a small percentage, so you barely see them. That's why there's a direct correlation between profitability and agent count. So remember that's it's very important to keep that in mind and remove that very limiting mindset that looking at them is not how you want to be. There are different cultures for sure. There are different, ways that you present yourself and market yourself and handle yourself. I'm okay with that, but don't do it at the expense of growth in personnel like that, because that comes from just generally speaking, the uncomfortableness associated with recruiting through the problem. Because you get big enough, it does create a pull. That push is no fun. I mean, I don't wish it on anybody. It's the hardest thing to do. That's why good recruiters that can push have the highest dollar value in the real estate industry, because it's the hardest thing to find, a good recruiter that can push. There's a lot that say they're recruiters because they can pull well. I'm already going to go to a large brokerage and just hire people to come to me. That, again, there's value there, trust me, but I'm not saying that there's no value, but not as hard as pushing, pushing stuff, right? That's real tough stuff. So again, you only have to do it for a while because that pull will come, right? And income will come, right? Like this is very important to remember to get you through this selectiveness and get you through like running back across the coals the other way and falling below a base camp. You know what I mean? Very important that we don't take 15 steps back and only 10 forward. So what we want to make sure we're doing here is to remember what our finish line looks like, because our finish line will bring us more income and personal time. How do you get more personal time? It's not just the pull that does that, because you don't have to recruit anymore. I mean, you take a team from 5 agents to 20 agents, I'll tell you brokerage in a minute. I mean, all of a sudden now we have enough income coming into that team where we could actually hire someone to do our recruiting and our retention. How do we do that? I don't know. There's a billion ways to do it, but probably the most common is just bring on a sales manager, a general manager. You pay them 5 to 10% override, or 5 to 10% of the gross commission income earned by the other agents on the team. You reduce your profit margin a little bit. I know that's always scary. You reduce that profit margin a little bit. But now that there's enough to compensate that person, because that new sales manager, they can still sell. I don't know, I'll take an average median home price, let's say of 400,000, go with a national average. And all of a sudden, that person could be making with 20 agents, we'll say that normal 85-15 mix, that person could be making $75,000 passive off their production a year, and they still get to sell too. And here's the kicker, that's with 20 agents. Well, you hired them to recruit too, because you're not going to recruit anymore, they're going to recruit. So what if they made that 40 agents? They made it 40 agents, now that 75 turns into $150,000 of passive income. If they keep going, they may not have to sell much longer, and they can replace themselves. And there's enough money to go around where you get multiple levels of leadership, which is what you see in the bigger teams. And you see that in brokerages the same way. They got to get a few more agents than that to make the numbers make sense, because there's a little bit lower profit margins in brokerages because, they have to be competitive and everything. But they have multiple levels of leaders too. The bigger brokerages, not only can the owner step out and start not selling, but they don't have to recruit and do so much with retention. And retention is like the coaching, the training, the providing service, the deal doctoring, all of that kind of stuff. And recruiting is recruiting, pushing and pulling. So understand that. Like, you got to know what the finish line looks like, because you're really only going to have to push and recruit for a short period of time before the pull happens, before you can actually hire someone, because you got more income and we're playing on the house's money all of a sudden. So understand that. So knowing that there is a finish line, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, is everything for your recruiting mindset. So remember that. It's crucial to get you through the justifications and the blaming and the complaining and all the reasons you can't continue to grow. Remember, just have a goal of what that looks like, and work with work with a coach. I tell you, they're going to keep you through it, because you're going to hit all kinds of obstacles. Lots of ways you got to reduce your profit margin to get there. You might need more space. That costs money. All things that cost money. Those are all profit margin reducers, and that's what you need coaches for. That, amongst other things. And we help you through that and tell you what models work and which ones don't. And get there, and we'll know, hey, if I can just get to 20 agents, I can hire some. That's what it looks like. So it's like, I just got to put my head down and get there, and remember, you do that, it's tougher than you think. All I need is 15 more agents to go from 5 to 20. Okay. Yeah. But remember, a lot of your agents are going to leave. A lot of those agents aren't going to work out. So you might need to get 30 agents to get to 20, so remember, just because, a lot of these guys are going to leave. That's just the way it works in real estate. There's an ebb and flow. So you're going to have to set a little bit higher watermark to get to where you want to go. Otherwise, you're going to just worry about keeping them all, and that's going to be too much for you. You cannot force and change that. Eventually, you're going to have an exodus, even if you hadn't. I've watched it with so many different people. We pride ourselves on keeping all our agents. Well, that's like protecting a profit margin. It's silly. It's anti-growth. You're going to have to spend money, invest in your business to grow, and agents are going to leave you. That's the only way to extract the poison. Eventually, it's going to happen, and you're going to need to move them on. And they're going to leave for lots of different reasons, so that you can't control. So play the growth game. Again, do it your way, with your style, your theme, your selectiveness, so long as it does not negatively impact your growth numbers, because there's a direct correlation there. So we do want to grow at some extent, and you will find that you have this end goal of the size you want your team or brokerage to look like. And I get that, and that's fine. Hopefully it's a little bigger, just a little bit, because it's going to change. You get a little bigger, you typically want to get a little bigger, and then a little bigger, because I need more income and a little bit more free time. So that I'm okay with that. It will change on you, and that's fine, and you won't need any convincing. But we always want to get a little bit bigger and get a little bit more free time, or you are in a very bad business model you shouldn't be in, and you're in an anti-growth mindset, which any business guru, self-help book you read about business out there is going to tell you, not a good place to be. We never want to be anti-growth. So recruiting is a mindset game. Remember the finish line. Remember to avoid selectiveness as your excuse and justification for not wanting to recruit. It's uncomfortable, but you do, as long as we have a light at the end of the tunnel, so that when we walk across those coals, we know where we're going, we got a number tied to it, we can roll up our sleeves and get there. Just like we did as a brand new agent trying to generate business. The push will end, the pull will start, and we're at the promised land. So I hope this helps with your recruiting mindset, or maybe your recruiter's mindset. It's kind of a key for coaches to remember when we're coaching recruiting too, because people often quit and change and make very limited beliefs with their entire structure of their organization, all their career goals, because of how uncomfortable it is. And all of a sudden they're just stuck. They're just stuck. And our job is not let you quit on your dreams, is to help you get there. And because it's very temporary pain. And once you fight through it, you're happy you did. So stop trying to assess where you're at while you're standing on the hot coals. It's not a good idea, because the whole idea is to get across them. But if you assess what you're like while you're standing on hot coals, you're going to go backwards. And then you're going to say, I can never go that direction anymore. And there's a reason 87% of agents don't make it 5 years in this business, is because they get on those hot coals and they say, I don't like this. Well, that's because you're assessing something before you're proficient at it, before you've completed it. It's pain, it's work, and we get through it. So I know you, as leaders, you complain about your agents not doing that. Well, we as coaches, the coach leaders, tell you, you do the same thing, right? I do the same thing. We all do the same thing. That's why we got to put ourselves in check sometimes. That's why we got to get coaches too, dang it. So there you have it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it, and can't wait to see you on the next episode.